My name is Madison Carter. Maybe you'd peg me as the type who bounces back too fast with that confident swagger and quick wit, but trust me, I've got layers. Like a birthday cake you didn't ask for but somehow can't stop eating. Speaking of birthdays, mine used to be a day I dreaded. Not because I hate parties or attention, but because it was the day everything went to hell. It was my 27th birthday when he dumped me via text. A two-line digital gut punch while I was still in bed, half asleep and dreaming about cake and candles. I remember staring at my phone, the screen glowing like some cruel joke in the dark. It's not you, it's me. Classic line, right? Except it wasn't classic at all. Not when you're expecting balloons and kisses, but get cold silence and a block instead. That text didn't just end a relationship, it crashed my whole year. You'd think people would be kind, but no friends awkwardly avoided me. Family tried too hard to be supportive, and I plastered on a smile so fake it could have been its own emoji. I shuffled through those days wondering if I was the joke everyone was laughing at behind my back. Honestly, some nights I cried so hard I thought my neighbors would call the cops on me. But here's the kicker. That breakup, that crushing birthday betrayal lit a fire under me. I wasn't going to let some cowardly text define my life or my birthday. So I hatched a plan. It started as a joke during a wine-fueled chat with a friend. What if my birthday was a national holiday? A day for people like me dumped broken but still standing. We laughed, but the idea stuck. And trust me, this story gets better. So before you sit back and listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you really like what I have to say here. Now get in the mood to listen to this story because it might be the ultimate sweet revenge. After that brutal birthday, I thought the worst was over. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The months that followed felt like wading through molasses, slow, sticky, and painfully relentless. Every morning I put on my armor, a smile so practiced it was practically permanent, a laugh that didn't quite reach my eyes. Friends tried to act normal, but their eyes told me they didn't really know how to handle the broken birthday girl. I got those well-meaning, awkward hugs and the, "you'll find someone better" pep talks, but none of it helped. At work, I became a ghost. The event planner with a knack for organizing flawless parties was suddenly a mess behind closed doors. I spent hours scrolling through social media, envying people who seemed to have their lives together, their happy couples, and perfect birthday celebrations. There were nights when I'd lie awake replaying that text over and over, trying to find some hidden meaning, some sign I missed. But there wasn't any. Just a clean, brutal break. Even strangers seemed to notice. One night, waiting in line for coffee, I caught a glance at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked tired, haunted. I realized I was becoming a walking cliché, the girl who got dumped, stuck in some endless pity loop. And that terrified me more than the breakup itself. So I started to hide in small things, new hobbies, late-night walks, binge-watching terrible shows that made me laugh. But inside the pain simmered. I didn't want pity, I wanted power. And somewhere deep down, I knew I had to find a way to flip the script. Remember the crocodile poop sunscreen from that summer trip? Yeah, that absurd, gross-smelling stuff that made us laugh when everything else was falling apart. That's the kind of ridiculous moment I clung to the weird, messy parts of life that somehow made me feel alive. It was in one of those late nights staring at my ceiling that the ridiculous idea from months ago bubbled back up. Why not really make my birthday a day worth celebrating, a day not about pain, but about survival and strength? What if I could turn my worst day into something epic? That night, armed with a glass of cheap wine and an overdue sense of rebellion, I finally let myself dream bigger than just getting over a breakup. I messaged my closest friends with a half-joking, half-serious plan. Let's make my birthday a national holiday. Call it Breakup Birthday or something cooler. A day for anyone who's been left hurt, but still here, kicking. The replies ranged from laughter to enthusiastic hell yes. It was ridiculous, sure, but it lit a spark that felt too good to ignore. We weren't just drowning in sadness anymore. We were plotting a kind of joyful rebellion. The more we talked, the more the idea grew legs. I sketched out what this holiday could look like: no more forced smiles or awkward pity parties. Instead, a day where people could own their pain, celebrate their resilience, maybe even laugh at the absurdity of heartbreak. Imagine events filled with laughter, music, self-care rituals, and ridiculous breakup costumes. I pictured billboards that said dumped, good, now celebrate, and social media campaigns that made heartbreak viral in the best way. Sure, it started as a joke between friends, but it felt like a lifeline. I wasn't just reclaiming my birthday, I was giving myself and others permission to heal loudly and proudly. And you better believe I was going to make some noise. That's when the planning began. I set up a simple website, drafted social media pages, and started reaching out to local groups and bloggers who might bite. I'm an event planner, so organizing chaos is kind of my jam, but this was different. This was personal, messy, and thrilling. I won't lie, the first few weeks were slow. Most people thought I was nuts. Some called it a petty stunt. But then something unexpected happened. A local blogger shared our story, and suddenly, a handful of strangers showed up to our first unofficial event. It was far from perfect, more like a reunion of the broken-hearted with mismatched party hats. But it was alive. And that's where things really started to get interesting. Planning the impossible wasn't just a catchy phrase, it became my life's new reality. I went from organizing corporate events to spearheading what felt like a grassroots rebellion disguised as a birthday party. Every free moment I had was spent drafting emails, designing flyers, and convincing friends to help spread the word. Some days it felt like pushing a boulder uphill, but with a stubborn grin plastered on my face. I remember the early mornings when I'd sit at my cluttered kitchen table half awake, scribbling down ideas for breakup birthday slogans and event themes. Cry and dance it out. Toast to freedom. Burn the X playlist. The more ridiculous, the better. My little notebook quickly filled with plans for dance parties, support circles, and self-love workshops. The goal: to turn heartbreak into a celebration that no one could ignore. Social media was my secret weapon. I created accounts dedicated to the movement and started posting personal stories, memes, and motivational quotes. At first, the audience was just my friends and a few curious strangers, but gradually more people began to join the conversation. Comments rolled in from all over, people sharing their own breakups, their own pain, their own desire to flip the script, like me. I also learned how to embrace the chaos. Our first event was honestly a hot mess. The venue was cramped, the music was too loud one minute and too soft the next, and half the decorations didn't arrive on time. Someone accidentally spilled red wine on the Freedom Toast banner. But you know what? It didn't matter. Because in that imperfect, messy room, something magical was happening. People were connecting, laughing, and most importantly, healing. One of the most unforgettable moments was when a woman got up to share her story of being dumped on Valentine's Day. The room went silent, then erupted in applause. I realized then that Breakup Birthday wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. The heartbreak, the resilience, the messy middle where we learn who we really are. From those small beginnings, the movement grew. Local media caught wind of our event, and suddenly, I was doing interviews, giving speeches, and answering questions I never thought I'd hear. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. But I had a mission: to turn pain into power, one birthday at a time. Our first protest, or more accurately, our first breakup birthday rally, was as chaotic as it was unforgettable. We'd booked a small park downtown, figuring that would be enough space for the dozen or so people who RSVP'd online. As the day arrived, more people showed up than expected, a mix of curious onlookers, fellow heartbreak survivors, and some who just stumbled upon us wondering what this birthday rebellion was all about. I stood on a rickety makeshift stage, gripping a microphone that squealed and buzzed with feedback. The sound system wasn't great, and the wind kept messing with the speakers, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the energy, raw, messy, and electric. We wore everything from glitter crowns to t-shirts printed with slogans like "Dumped, but not defeated," and "My ex's loss, my holiday." Some folks handed out handmade flyers with breakup survival tips, while others handed out little cupcakes with tiny breakup birthday flags stuck in them. I gave a speech that was half heartfelt confession, half call to arms. I talked about how heartbreak feels like losing yourself, but how we could reclaim that loss, make it a celebration of resilience. My voice cracked a few times, but the crowd cheered louder. There was laughter, tears, and even a few dance breaks because what's a party without dancing, right? And then came the moment that changed everything. A local news crew showed up. They caught the fire in my eyes and the crowd's infectious spirit. The footage aired on the evening news, and suddenly, what started as a small, messy gathering exploded into something bigger than I dared to imagine. Within days, messages flooded my inbox from people all over the country wanting to start their own breakup birthday events. Social media blew up with hashtags like Breakup Birthday and Celebrate Survival. I was stunned, overwhelmed, and honestly terrified, but I knew I had to keep going. It was messy, unpredictable, and absolutely beautiful. And that was just the beginning. The viral moment hit me like a tidal wave, overwhelming and impossible to ignore. It was surreal, a complete whirlwind that flipped my world upside down and somehow made it right again at the same time. Just hours before, I'd been nervously clutching a battered microphone at our first breakup birthday rally, trying to keep my voice steady as I shared my story. The crowd was small, maybe a couple dozen people, mostly friends and curious strangers. The park was chilly, the wind tugging at the balloons and banners we'd hastily put together. But what happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined. Somewhere between my awkward first joke and the fiery speech about reclaiming pain as power, someone hit record. The video captured everything raw and unpolished. The crack in my voice when I talked about that brutal breakup, the way the crowd erupted with cheers and laughter, the small moments of vulnerability that somehow connected us all. Then overnight, the video exploded. I woke up the next morning to hundreds, no thousands of notifications. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from strangers across the country. People were sharing their own heartbreak stories, thanking me for giving a voice to a pain they thought they had to hide. The hashtag breakup birthday was everywhere, flooding Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook with stories, memes, and celebrations of survival. People were hosting their own breakup-themed parties, crafting playlists of songs about lost love and self-empowerment, and posting photos of their personal celebrations. Influencers with massive followings began posting heartfelt videos revealing their own painful breakups and how they'd turned those experiences into strength. Some created virtual breakup birthday events, inviting thousands to join online dance parties or group therapy sessions. Suddenly, the movement wasn't just a quirky local gathering, it was a nationwide phenomenon spreading like wildfire. The energy was intoxicating. Every new post, every message, every shared story felt like a wave of collective healing. I couldn't keep up with the flood of responses, but I read as many as I could, crying at some, laughing at others, overwhelmed by the sheer scope of it all. But with the spotlight came inevitable shadows. The trolls arrived like clockwork. Harsh, bitter comments filled the message boards and social media threads. People accused me of seeking attention, of profiting off heartbreak. Others dismissed breakup birthday as childish, a gimmick doomed to fade. I found myself scrolling through some of the cruelest comments late into the night, feeling that old familiar sting of doubt and insecurity. Was I really creating something meaningful, or just making a spectacle out of my pain? Some comments cut deeper than I expected, from strangers questioning my motives to acquaintances expressing their own doubts. Even my closest friends were divided. Some cheered me on enthusiastically, while others worried I was holding on to bitterness too tightly. It was exhausting, draining, and sometimes painful. But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered the messages from people who found hope and strength because of Breakup Birthday. One woman wrote that the movement had helped her smile again after years of silence. A man thanked me for creating a community where he finally felt understood after a crushing divorce. A teenager told me she'd started her own breakup birthday in her small town, and it had changed her life. These stories reminded me why I had started in the first place: to build something real, something bigger than myself. With each new message, I felt the fire inside me rekindle. The movement wasn't about me anymore. It was about all of us who refused to be defined by heartbreak. It was a collective act of defiance against pain and isolation. Breakup Birthday was becoming a revolution in resilience. Behind the scenes, the sudden growth brought chaos. I was overwhelmed with interview requests, emails from event organizers, and messages from people wanting to join or start chapters. My calendar was packed with Zoom meetings and phone calls, and my phone never stopped buzzing. I was juggling it all while trying to hold on to my own healing journey. There were moments when exhaustion hit like a freight train. Sleepless nights wrestling with self-doubt, days spent negotiating with media outlets that wanted to sensationalize the movement, and times I questioned if I was strong enough to lead this growing community. The pressure was real and the stakes felt enormous. But the community rallied around me. Volunteers stepped up to help organize events. Mental health professionals offered support and resources. Creators from around the world contributed artwork, music, and stories. Together, we transformed Breakup Birthday from a viral moment into a living, breathing movement. One of the most powerful experiences was the outpouring of solidarity from people who'd been broken in ways I hadn't imagined. Messages came from those coping with loss, illness, and trauma, people who saw in Breakup Birthday a way to reclaim joy and hope amidst darkness. It reminded me that heartbreak isn't limited to romantic relationships. It's woven into many forms of loss, and healing can be universal. As the movement expanded, I realized the impact of storytelling. Vulnerability had become our superpower. Sharing our wounds didn't make us weak. It forged connections and empowered others to embrace their own journeys. I started to see Breakup Birthday as more than a day on the calendar. It was a symbol of resilience, a declaration that our stories mattered. Despite the growing scale, I was determined to keep the spirit authentic. No slick marketing or corporate sponsorships would dilute the rawness of what we created. Breakup Birthday had to remain a space where honesty and imperfection were celebrated. Looking back on that viral moment now, I see it as the spark that ignited everything. It was a reminder that sometimes the most personal pain can become a catalyst for collective healing and transformation. That the courage to share our stories can ripple outward and change lives. And for me, it was the moment I realized heartbreak wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. Backlash came faster and harder than I could have ever imagined, like an unexpected storm after the calm. For every message of support, there seemed to be two more filled with criticism, mockery, or outright hate. Suddenly, Breakup Birthday was no longer just a celebration, it was a target. The trolls showed up in force, lashing out on social media and comment sections. They called the movement childish, petty, or just another attention-seeking stunt. Some accused me of exploiting heartbreak for personal gain. It stung deeply. I had poured everything into creating a safe, empowering space only to be told I was making a spectacle of my pain. It wasn't just strangers either. People I once trusted questioned my motives and sanity. Some friends grew distant, unable to understand why I was so invested in what they saw as a silly idea. Family members worried aloud that I was holding on to bitterness or making my healing harder by reopening wounds. But the cruelest blow came from my ex, the very person who dumped me on that birthday. Out of the blue, he reappeared in my life through social media, mocking the entire movement. His messages were sarcastic, hurtful, and designed to provoke. He called Breakup Birthday delusional and told me to get over it. For a moment, the old insecurities and pain rushed back, with full force shaking my resolve. Those nights were some of the darkest. I questioned whether I was chasing a fantasy. Was I clinging to bitterness? Was the movement just an elaborate excuse to hold on to past hurt? Doubt whispered in my ear relentlessly. But then I thought of all the messages from people whose lives Breakup Birthday had touched. Those who'd found laughter, hope, and healing because of this community. I remembered the stories of survival, the shared tears and triumphs. That's when I knew I couldn't let the negativity silence us. The backlash was a test, a gauntlet thrown down by the world that wasn't ready for a movement like ours. But I refused to back down. Instead, I leaned into the chaos. I spoke openly about my vulnerabilities and fears. I reminded supporters that true change is messy and uncomfortable. Revolutions rarely unfold smoothly. The hate became fuel. Every insult, every dismissal sharpened my determination. I learned to set boundaries online to focus on the voices that mattered. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Behind the scenes, our community grew stronger and more united. Volunteers doubled down organizing events and spreading positive messages. Mental health advocates joined forces to amplify the movement's message of healing and resilience. We created safe spaces where honesty and raw emotion were celebrated. In time, the backlash faded into the background noise, overshadowed by the growing chorus of support. Breakup Birthday was no longer just my story. It was the story of every person who refused to be defined by heartbreak, every person who chose to stand tall and celebrate survival. Petitioning for government recognition of Breakup Birthday was a test of endurance strategy and sheer willpower. Viral fame and community support were vital, but bureaucracy proved to be an entirely different battlefield. I quickly learned that passion alone wouldn't open the doors of power. The process required mastering political language, understanding legislative procedures, and building coalitions with stakeholders who might initially be indifferent or skeptical. Our first step was drafting a formal proposal articulating how Breakup Birthday could promote mental health awareness, foster community engagement, and even stimulate local economies through events and commerce. The proposal needed to be concise, compelling, and backed by data wherever possible. Meetings with government officials were often polite but frosty. Many had never heard of Breakup Birthday and questioned its legitimacy as a real holiday. I faced skepticism about whether a day focused on heartbreak was appropriate for official recognition and whether the movement had lasting impact or was just a social media fad. One particularly memorable meeting with a legislative committee felt like a trial. I presented our case passionately, highlighting testimonials, social media statistics, and mental health research linking community support with improved well-being. But their eyes glazed over and the atmosphere felt distant. Then came the pivotal moment. A committee member asked, "How many people actually support this?" That question shifted the dynamic. It became clear that data and community voice were crucial. We ramped up our grassroots campaign. Volunteers organized petition drives, collected tens of thousands of signatures, and coordinated letter-writing campaigns. Social media became a megaphone flooding offices with messages from constituents demanding recognition. We engaged local businesses, artists, and nonprofit leaders to write endorsements. Mental health professionals submitted letters of support. The movement's growing breadth made it impossible for officials to ignore. Months passed with incremental progress. Each rejection was painful but fueled our determination. We refined our proposal, increased outreach, and strategically engaged sympathetic politicians. The tipping point came when a respected local representative publicly endorsed Breakup Birthday, citing its positive mental health impact and community-building power. This endorsement opened doors leading to hearings and public discussions. Throughout, I learned that advocacy is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires patience, resilience, and unwavering belief in your cause. Breakup Birthday's journey from a viral sensation to a recognized holiday exemplified the power of grassroots organizing combined with strategic political engagement. The experience also reinforced the movement's core message. Healing and resilience deserve space in our culture, our conversations, and our calendars. While the movement was gaining ground politically and culturally, my personal journey continued to unfold behind the scenes, quieter, more complicated, but just as crucial. Leading Breakup Birthday into the spotlight didn't make me immune to vulnerability or exhaustion. If anything, it magnified it. Some days I was running on adrenaline and hope fueled by messages from supporters and the buzz of new events. Other days, the weight of responsibility pressed down hard, and I found myself retreating into silence. The demands of leadership, media appearances, and community engagement collided with my own need for healing and self-care. Healing, I learned, was never a linear path. It wasn't about getting over the breakup or the pain. It was about sitting with the discomfort, embracing the messy middle, and learning to be gentle with myself. I began journaling regularly, pouring my thoughts and fears onto the page. I sought therapy not just as a coping mechanism, but as a foundation for sustainable growth. Physical practices helped too. Yoga became a daily ritual, teaching me to breathe through discomfort. Long walks in nature cleared my mind and grounded me when anxiety threatened to overwhelm. I found solace in small joys, cooking a comforting meal, watching sunsets, listening to music that spoke to both my pain and hope. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling day of meetings, I sat alone in a quiet park, watching couples stroll hand in hand. Instead of jealousy or sadness, I felt a profound curiosity. Curious about who I was becoming, what happiness meant for me, and how I could cultivate joy on my own terms. This curiosity opened the door to self-compassion. I realized that healing wasn't about erasing scars, but about integrating them into my story, making peace with the past to build a future grounded in authenticity and strength. Breakup Birthday became not just a movement I led, but a lived experience, a daily practice of resilience. I saw it reflected in the community too. People showing up to events not just to celebrate, but to share their vulnerabilities, to cry, to laugh, and to support one another. Balancing the public role with private healing was challenging. There were moments I felt exposed, questioned whether I was enough, and worried about burnout. But the collective strength of the community buoyed me, reminding me that vulnerability was a source of connection and power. This journey taught me that true leadership requires embracing imperfection and honoring the humanity beneath the cause, and that sometimes the most profound revolutions happen quietly within her. National attention hit like a tidal wave, unexpected, overwhelming, and completely transformative. What had started as a small, messy gathering of heartbreak survivors was now a cultural phenomenon sweeping across cities, states, and even countries. I woke up one morning to find that Breakup Birthday was trending worldwide on social media platforms. Millions of people were sharing their own breakup stories, posting pictures of their celebrations, and using hashtags like Breakup Birthday and Celebrate Survival. The media frenzy was both thrilling and exhausting. Every major news outlet wanted a piece of the story, the woman who took her personal heartbreak and turned it into a nationwide movement. Interviews flooded in. TV shows, radio segments, podcasts, online magazines. Some were deeply personal, where I got to share the raw emotion behind the idea, while others were more lighthearted, focusing on the fun and rebellious aspects of the holiday. Celebrities jumped on board, sharing their own breakup experiences and throwing breakup birthday parties that went viral. A few even created playlists inspired by the movement, featuring songs about love lost and empowerment. The energy was electric. Seeing well-known figures embrace the cause added legitimacy and amplified the message far beyond what I had imagined in those early quiet nights. But the rapid rise also came with challenges. The spotlight intensified scrutiny, and not all feedback was positive. Some accused the movement of trivializing heartbreak or being a cynical marketing ploy. Others questioned the sincerity of a holiday born out of personal pain. Amidst the praise and criticism, I had to learn to stay grounded, remembering the real people behind every shared story and every celebration. One of the most rewarding moments came when people from all walks of life, single parents, young adults, retirees, reached out to thank me. They shared how Breakup Birthday gave them permission to laugh again, to heal openly, and to reclaim their narratives. These messages reinforced that the movement wasn't just a trend, it was a lifeline, a community, and a catalyst for change. Organizing large-scale events became a new challenge. I partnered with local organizations, mental health professionals, and artists to create celebrations that balanced joy with healing. Workshops on self-care, group therapy sessions, and even art installations became part of the festivities. Breakup Birthday transformed from a one-day party into a multifaceted movement embracing vulnerability and strength. Behind the scenes, I navigated a whirlwind of logistics, securing venues, coordinating volunteers, managing media relations, all while trying to keep my own life together. The line between personal healing and public activism blurred, but I was determined to honor the spirit of Breakup Birthday, turning pain into power, heartbreak into hope. Looking back, the journey from that painful text message to a nationwide celebration was surreal. The birthday I once dreaded became a day people awaited with excitement, a day to honor resilience and community. And while the movement grew beyond anything I could have imagined, its heart remained the same, a reminder that even the darkest moments can lead to the brightest beginnings. After more than a year of relentless campaigning, endless meetings, and pouring my heart into this cause, the day finally came. Breakup. Birthday was officially recognized as a national holiday. It wasn't the kind of headline you see every day, but for me, it was like the world finally stopped to listen. The announcement came as a simple press release early one morning, but to me it felt like fireworks exploding inside my chest. I read the words over and over, not quite believing it. A government body had acknowledged what started as a messy, drunken joke. A day to celebrate heartbreak resilience and personal growth. Official recognition meant more than just a day off. Schools were encouraged to include lessons on emotional health and resilience. Workplaces started promoting self-care initiatives around that date. Communities began organizing events from art exhibitions and poetry slams to group therapy sessions and dance parties. Mental health organizations partnered with local governments to provide workshops and resources for those struggling with loss and transition. Suddenly, Breakup Birthday was everywhere. Billboards in cities displayed bold slogans like Celebrate Survival and Your Pain is Your Power. Social media exploded with people sharing their stories and plans to celebrate. Brands, some skeptical at first, jumped on board offering self-care packages, breakup kits, and special deals that encouraged people to take care of themselves. Organizing the first official nationwide celebrations was a monumental task. I found myself juggling 1,000 moving pieces, coordinating with event planners in cities across the country, liaising with government officials, managing volunteers, and balancing media requests. The days blurred into sleepless nights. I was running on adrenaline and coffee, but every moment felt worth it. Traveling from city to city, I witnessed something incredible. Streets once quiet were now alive with music, laughter, and tears. People wore everything from glittering crowns to homemade breakup-themed costumes. Some danced in the streets. Others held hands in quiet circles sharing stories. The energy was raw and authentic, a mixture of catharsis and joy. In one city, a group of teenagers shared how Breakup Birthday gave them a safe space to express feelings they'd bottled up for years. Their eyes shone with relief and hope. In another, a middle-aged woman told me how the holiday helped her reclaim her identity after a painful divorce, something she'd struggled to do for decades. There were moments that took my breath away, like when a young man stood up at a celebration to thank the movement for helping him rebuild after losing his partner. The room fell silent, then erupted in applause. That night, I lay awake replaying that moment, knowing this was bigger than me. But official recognition also brought new challenges. Suddenly, the media spotlight was brighter and harsher. I was asked tough questions about the commercialization of the holiday, the sincerity of its message, and whether a day focused on heartbreak could really promote healing. I learned to navigate these conversations with honesty and grace, reminding myself and others that healing isn't perfect. It's messy, complex, and deeply personal. At the heart of it all, I held on to the reason I started: to give people permission to feel, to heal, and to celebrate themselves, no matter their scars. Breakup Birthday was a revolution, a new tradition, and a community that had grown far beyond what I ever imagined. And as I watched the celebrations grow louder, more vibrant, and more inclusive, I knew this was only the beginning. A day once feared and dreaded had become a beacon of strength and hope for millions. The first official nationwide Breakup Birthday celebrations were an experience unlike any other, both chaotic and beautiful, full of raw emotion and unexpected moments of joy. After the months of campaigning and planning, finally seeing people from all walks of life come together to honor resilience was deeply rewarding. Events unfolded in city squares, community centers, parks, and even online. Local organizers got creative. Some held themed dance parties where the playlist was packed with breakup anthems and empowering hits, while others arranged group therapy circles and workshops focused on emotional healing. Art exhibitions displayed pieces that captured the spectrum of heartbreak, loss, and recovery, from anguished sketches to hopeful sculptures. I traveled extensively during this time, attending events from coast to coast. Each city had its own flavor and energy, but the underlying spirit was universal. A collective celebration of survival and growth. People shared stories of betrayal and recovery, tears and laughter intermingled, and friendships were forged in the fires of shared pain. One memory remains vivid: the sight of a group of teenagers at a community center nervously clutching handmade signs and nervously waiting for their turn to speak. When they finally did, their words were candid and powerful, touching on first love's lost and newfound strength. Watching them reclaim their voices reminded me of the importance of this day, not just for adults hardened by years of experience, but for young hearts learning how to heal. Another unforgettable moment was a middle-aged woman approaching me with tears in her eyes, explaining how Breakup Birthday gave her permission to grieve her divorce openly for the first time in years. She talked about how societal pressures had forced her to hide her pain, but this holiday offered validation and hope. As the celebration swelled, the movement expanded beyond just healing. Businesses launched self-care packages, bookstores featured curated lists of empowering reads, and wellness centers offered discounts on therapies and classes. Even restaurants joined in creating breakup birthday menus featuring comfort foods and signature cocktails. The energy was contagious, the spirit uplifting. Breakup Birthday had evolved from a personal battle cry into a nationwide embrace of vulnerability and strength. The old narrative of heartbreak as shame gave way to a new story, one where pain was acknowledged, resilience celebrated, and joy reclaimed. Behind the scenes, I balanced the pressures of public life with personal growth. Leading a movement while continuing my own healing journey was challenging. Some days I felt exposed and exhausted, but moments like these, watching strangers hug, laugh, and dance despite their scars, reminded me why I fought so hard. As the sun set on the first official breakup birthday, I realized something profound. This holiday was no longer just mine. It belonged to everyone who had been hurt, who had fallen and risen again, and who chose to celebrate life on their own terms. I didn't just survive that breakup, I transformed it into a movement, a symbol of power, and ultimately a reason to celebrate. Breakup Birthday wasn't merely a holiday. It became a testament to resilience, a day dedicated to owning your story and finding strength in your struggles. If there's one message I want to leave you with, it's this: your pain doesn't define you, but your response to it absolutely does. Looking back, I remember the dark days, the endless nights where doubt and loneliness crept in, whispering that I wasn't enough. The trolls online, the harsh criticisms, the times I felt like giving up. Bureaucracy felt like a brick wall, and the idea of convincing a government to recognize a holiday born from heartbreak seemed laughable. But every time I stumbled, I found a reason to keep going. I thought of the young woman who messaged me telling me that Breakup Birthday gave her the courage to leave a toxic relationship she'd been trapped in for years. She said seeing others celebrate survival made her realize she wasn't alone. Then there was the middle-aged man recently divorced who shared how the holiday helped him reconnect with himself after decades of putting others first. I received countless messages from strangers from all walks of life, thanking me for turning their pain into a celebration of hope. These stories became my fuel reminders that this wasn't just about me. It was about every person who had felt broken and found the strength to heal. The movement had grown into a community of survivors, warriors, and fighters who refused to let heartbreak define their future. Revenge, I realized, isn't about bitterness or spite. It's about reclaiming your life, your joy, and your narrative. It's about standing tall, smiling wider, and living louder than ever before. Sweet Revenge is quiet, powerful, and deeply personal. It's the victory of self-love over despair. If you're watching this and feeling hurt, lost, or broken, know this: you are not alone. Your story matters. Your pain is valid. And there is a community ready to celebrate every step you take toward healing. Maybe it's not your birthday, but maybe it should be. Maybe it's time for you to start your own revolution. Take this holiday as a sign that you can turn any dark moment into a beacon of light. Celebrate your survival, your scars, your strength. You deserve it. As I stand here today reflecting on the journey from a crushed heart to a national movement, I'm filled with gratitude. Gratitude for the people who believed, for the friends who stuck by me, for the strangers who became family. This journey wasn't easy. Sometimes it was brutally hard, but it was worth every moment. So what's next? Breakup Birthday is no longer just a day on the calendar, it's a lifestyle. It's about embracing vulnerability, practicing self-care, and building resilience every day. It's about rewriting the narratives society tells us about heartbreak and healing. If you want to be part of this movement, here's what you can do. Celebrate your own story. Whether you're healing from a breakup or just need a reminder of your strength, take a moment to honor yourself. Join the community. Follow the Breakup Birthday movement on social media, attend local events, or start one in your own town. Share your voice. Your story can inspire others. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and honest. Practice kindness to yourself and others. Healing is a journey we all walk differently. Subscribe and stay connected. If you want more stories of resilience, revenge, and redemption, hit that subscribe button. And like this video, I promise to keep sharing stories that empower and uplift because everyone deserves to feel seen and celebrated. Before I sign off, here's a gentle reminder. Healing isn't a destination. It's not about getting over it, but about learning to live with your past while building a brighter future. It's messy, imperfect, and ongoing. And that's okay. So take your time, be patient with yourself, celebrate every small victory, and never forget you are stronger than you think. Thank you for listening, thank you for believing, and thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, your story isn't over. It's just beginning. Looking back on this journey, it's clear how something as painful as a breakup can spark unexpected strength and transformation. Breakup Birthday started as a personal act of defiance, a way for me to reclaim a day marked by loss and turn it into one of celebration. What grew from that small spark was a movement that connected thousands, then millions, who refused to be defined by heartbreak alone. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to every person who's felt broken, lost, and uncertain, yet found the courage to stand up and own their story. It's about turning pain into power and creating spaces where vulnerability becomes a bridge to connection and healing. The road was far from easy. Backlash, doubt, exhaustion, and bureaucracy challenged me every step of the way. But every obstacle reaffirmed the movement's importance and the resilience of the community behind it. Healing, I learned, isn't a straight line. It's a winding path filled with moments of doubt and breakthroughs, tears and laughter. Breakup Birthday now stands as a symbol, not just a holiday on the calendar, but a declaration that our stories matter, that pain can be transformed into joy, and that no one has to face heartbreak alone. So if you're watching this feeling lost or broken, know that your story is valid and that healing is possible. You have a community ready to celebrate your strength. This is your invitation to reclaim your power and join a movement that celebrates resilience, self-love, and the courage to start anew. Thank you for listening. This is just the beginning, and together we will keep turning heartbreak into hope.